We're here with Jeremy Roenick, and Jeremy, you're obviously an NHL veteran of over 20 years, and as we were talking earlier, you mentioned that you had over 13 concussions. Now, Sidney Crosby hasn't played since January 5th. How is it how teams dealt with concussions in the past compared to today? Obviously, they're much more careful than they are when you played.
When I first started in '88, there was no fear for the brain. We would get concussed, we would get knocked out, and we'd get smelling salts, and they'd send us right back out. I remember in 1989, I got knocked out by Jim Johnson in Minnesota. Knocked out so cold that I woke up 15, 20 minutes later in the locker room and had no idea how I got into the locker room, and they said I actually went in there under my own power, and I didn't even remember it. And I ended up playing the next day again against Minnesota back in Chicago. Scored a hat trick, by the way, but they never put any kind of emphasis on the science of what happens when you get a concussion. They just thought, hey, once you shake it off, you go back out. And now that all these things have happened with secondary injuries, with lack of memory, with the lack of people understanding what's going on, and now there's a science behind it, and they've done a lot more research. Now they really take it very seriously. If you get one concussion, one bump to the head where you feel woozy, any kind of symptom, you have to be out for at least a week of any physical exertion from playing in the hockey in the National Hockey League, which I think is good because these things you never know what's going to happen with the concussion symptom.
Now, was it just the trainers that examined you, or did you actually go to the hospital where you had other doctors? This way, they didn't have a vesting interest in your health.
It was both. I went to the hospital with a concussion in St. Louis. Spent the night on a concussion that I had. I got hit by Jeff Courtnall, scored a nice goal, and got blindsided and spent the night in the hospital. And I think ever since like the mid to late 90s, that's when all the concussion research started really kicking into high gear. Now it's one of those things where it is a massive must to not only protect the head with the equipment, but the rules, and then with the ability to stay off the ice once you do get an injury.
Obviously, recently the news came out about Dave Duerson, and I'm sure you read about it, former Chicago Bear. Thinks concussions had an effect on his mental stability. Obviously, you mentioned you had 13 concussions. Does something like that concern you right now?
It doesn't concern me because I've been able to feel good. I did go through one point in 2004 where I had 6 months of just a miserable existence with the concussion aspects. You're irritable. You're very sensitive to light and noise. Any kind of physical exertion will allow you to feel nauseous. When you have mood swings because of concussions and you can't help them, it becomes a very difficult thing to deal with. I can understand what Dave Duerson was talking about. You do go through these depression states because your brain plays tricks on you, and the concussion aspect is they say is one of the reasons for it. But it's something that if you don't take precaution of, can sneak up on you and bite you.
Is it safe to say that players, because you have to be tough to play hockey, you have to be tough to play football, sometimes players might have that macho mentality where they don't want to say they're hurt, especially if it's something that you can't see?
Oh, 100%. 100%. We are athletes. We are proud athletes. We are ego-traced athletes. We definitely feel that we are untouchable. We definitely feel that we're unbreakable. And that kind of mentality will hurt you in the long run. And I think that's why the doctors have taken a very strong stance in controlling the rules of not letting players play, not by the rules, not just by decision making, but by the rules, not letting people play because of that concussion state. But it's in every sport. You're never going to get rid of the concussions in a physical sport. The brain is always going to go through trauma when contact is made. You just have to try to limit the amount of damage that's going to be done. But there's no question that athletes have a different mentality in that aspect. They'll do a lot more with a concussion than the normal average everyday person would.
Then it's safe to say, obviously, you approve of how the Pittsburgh Penguins are handling Sidney Crosby right now.
Yeah, I think they're doing a great job. They're planning. They have their future in their hands, and they don't want to misuse or misdiagnose or mistreat his injury. The last thing that the Pittsburgh Penguins want is for Sidney Crosby to come back too soon when his brain is still healing and take another one to the head, and that next one to the head could knock him out for a career. That would be devastating for the Pittsburgh Penguins, knowing how much they have invested in him. The best thing that they can do is keep him off. Hey, if he's out for the rest of the year, one Stanley Cup and one season of playoffs is not a lot to sacrifice when you're talking about a 15-year career for the best player in the world.
USA Hockey Hall of Famer Jeremy Roenick, thank you very much for your time.
You got it.